how I can save or make you $5,000 or more simply by understanding what real estate prorations are. And the main time that you're going to use this is when you're closing on a property. What it's going to do is it's going to allow you to make sure that you're not overpaying or getting shorted on rental income that you deserve as the new owner of the property. What are real estate prorations? Well, simply put, there are two kinds of prorations that we're going to talk about. There could be a couple other ones, but primarily in every real estate deal you do for investment properties, there's going to be two kinds of proration. The first proration is property taxes. When you buy a property, the odds that you buy that property on January 1st, 1 out of 365 days would be a little less than 3%. My bet is almost zero because people don't work on New Year's Day. People don't work on January 1st, which means that you shouldn't pay for a full year of property taxes, right? My birthday is on July 1st. It is exactly halfway through the year. Growing up as a kid, it was always easy for me to say I'm 4.5. It was always really easy to track and know exactly where I am. But on another way to look at this is if you buy a piece of real estate on July 1st, which is possible, some closing companies do work on July 1st, then you would owe exactly half of the property tax bill. So we're going to dive into an example here in just a second of a property I bought this year for a little over $2 million, and I'm going to show you the prorations, but let's just use an example. Let's say that this storage facility that I bought as an investment property had $2 million value, $20,000 of property taxes. $20,000 of property taxes. If I bought it on July 1st, which I almost did, I bought this one on June 28th, then if I did buy it on July 1st, I would want to pay for exactly half of that year's property taxes, which means I'd want to pay for $10,000 because I only owned it for half of the year. Who would pay for the other half? Well, the seller. Even though they sold the property, they still owned it for half of the year, and really you pay property taxes and all other kind of prorations on a per diem basis, right? Per diem meaning per day. Now, if you're in like a lot of situations on July 1st and actually just got my property tax bill, today is November 2nd, my property tax bill is due on December 1st, well, the property taxes weren't out at that time. So that's why we did a proration, because it's not like they could have gone ahead and sent a check in. They didn't even have it yet. So I'll show you exactly how it works. If you don't mind, follow me over here to my computer and let's take a look at this. Now on the right side, I have the actual settlement statement. I blanked out the names here for privacies, but you can see that I bought the property for $2.25 million, and I got a loan of 3.027. That's because the total project will be about $3.5 million with some construction I'm doing. But here's the section I want to direct your attention to: the prorations and adjustments. Okay, so we have county taxes here, which is what I'm telling you about, the property taxes, estimated at $21,348.91. Now, there's a couple different ways to kind of get this base number, but the attorneys here that closed this property estimated what they thought the property taxes could be. They can either look at last year and see the rate at which they've increased and apply it, or if the tax bill is out, they can go ahead and use it. In this situation, they looked at the prior year's tax bill and just estimated what this upcoming year's bill would be. And you can see here that they have, this is the borrower and the buyer, okay? I am the buyer and the borrower of the loan, and I'm getting a credit, which means I'm having money sent to me. If I have a bank account and I get money that comes into that bank account has been credited. When I spend money out of it, that is a debit out of the bank account. Well, same thing's happening here. I got a credit, meaning somebody is sending me money for $10,498. Okay, and that's based off of the $21,348 bill. So here's how this works, right? We have a $21,348 bill and 91 cents. Okay, this is the tax bill, not Rack's bill. This is the tax bill. Okay, and let's put this in dollars here, just so we can see. And then let's find out a per diem. Okay, so the per diem here is equals this amount divided by $365. So property taxes on this investment property are $58.49 a day. Now you can see that my credit was for, the credit I received was for $10,498.40, which means, what does that mean? It means if we were to come here and we see how many days then all I would do is I would come up here, I'd take the credit amount and I divide it by the per diem amount, and you can see that it comes out to 179 and a half days. So they actually went ahead and prorated a half day here, so that on the closing day itself, I paid for half of it and the seller paid for half of it because we closed in the middle of the day, which is funny. That they did that. Most of the time, people will just do whole days, okay? So 179 days here for the 10,498. Now, you guys want to know how to calculate this self to make sure that it's being done correctly. And number one, you just want to make sure that it's being done in most parts. So if I didn't have the credit amount and I was told, hey, figure out the prorations, here's how I would do it. Again, we have to go from January 1st. So I'll do 01/01/2023, and I'll do the closing date. So 06-29-2023. And then all I want to do is I can come up here, I can take this number minus this number, and it gives me 179 days. So Excel will actually count the number of days for you. Okay, if I wanted to do this the other way and see how many days, and by the way, this 179 days is the amount of days the sellers owned the property. Right? That's the amount of days in this year that they owned it and I didn't own it. If I want to figure out how many days I'm going to own it, then I'm going to come to 01/01/2024. Okay? And then if I want to figure out the number of days that I'm going to own it, I'll take that date, January 1st of next year, minus the closing date, and that's going to give me 186 days. Okay, so you can see there's a little bit of a small discrepancy here. Let's see, because 179 plus 186, 365 days. No discrepancy. They used a half day. I didn't use a half day, but we're talking about a couple of bucks here, 25 bucks, right? And so again, if I want to figure out what I'm going to pay whenever it comes time for me to pay this $21,348, the real net expense to me is the number of days I owned it minus the per diem, so 10,879. So even though I'm paying this $21,348 bill, the true expense to me in this year is only 10,879. Now, let me ask you a question. What if you guys forgot to do the prorations at closing? Guess who's responsible for paying? You are. Now, could you go back to the seller and say, hey, we forgot to do property tax prorations? Sure, you could go back to them and say that, but are they required to pay you? No. So really in prorations, I'm going to get into the second kind of prorations where this is a little bit more important. Most attorneys won't let you close without prorations, but the next is all up to you, okay? And what this is, it's called on settlement statement versus outside a settlement statement or off a settlement statement. Or sometimes it's called, do you want to handle this in closing or outside of closing? Okay, and the property tax is one of the bigger ones. The second one, though, is rental prorations, okay? Here's the next place I want to direct your attention to. You can see here, this is called assessments. It's not normally called assessments. Normally it's called rent prorations. I'm not sure why they titled it assessments here. And you can see that this proration, unlike the taxes in which it was from January 1st to June 29th, this one is from June 29th to June 30th. So this isn't a yearly proration. This is a monthly proration, right? Not a yearly. This is a monthly proration. And this is to prorate the income that was received in the month of June, the month I bought it. Because again, the seller sold it in the middle of the month. June has 15 days. Some days like February have 28. July has 31. You have to find the number of days. But let's use June as an example. And let's say we closed it on the 15th. And let's say this property had $30,000 of income in that month. Well, 15,000 of it belonged to the sellers and 15,000 of it belongs to me, right? Because I owned the property for half of the month in which rent was due. A lot of people miss this, okay? A lot of people say, oh, well, Joe, the person who sold me the property, owned it on the 1st, so he keeps all the rent. No, you are legally entitled to whatever percentage of that month in which the rent is paid. So this is up to you to make sure you include it. And if you have a great relationship with the seller, then you can say, hey, we'll settle it outside of closing. If you don't have a good relationship or you just want to be buttoned up, you would want to handle this on the settlement statement. So let's look at another scenario here. Again, here, they don't tell us the rental amount, but we can make an assumption, right? Because we have the assessments from the 29th to the 30th. So again, in June, there are 30 days. Okay, and I, Hayden, will own this from the 29th to the 30th. That's 2 days. They might have counted it as a day and a half here, but I'm gonna own it for 2 days, okay? Now, they gave us a credit of, or a proration. They prorated it and gave us a credit. If we were selling it, then the credits would actually be a debit. It would be money taken off of our side, right? They gave us $1,213.60. Okay, so what I need to do is I need to figure out what percentage of the month am I going to own this? What percentage of the month will I own? So simply put, we're just going to have 2 divided by 30, which comes out to 0.667%, right? If you own it for a day, then that's 3%. Well, we're going to own it for 2 days, 7%. Bump that out, 6.67. So to figure out the total credit that was given here, what they were assuming the monthly rent was, is going to come out to, total monthly rent is going to come out to the total credit divided by the amount of time I owned it. $18,204 for this property sounds about right, is what they were anticipating coming in, okay? So if we didn't have somebody else figure this out for us, but we knew that the income was going to be, let's say, $22,000, right? Now we're just ignoring this. We knew the income was going to be $22,000 of rent on this property, and I would say, hey, here's what you owe me for this, and I would just take the $22,000 a month of rent times the 0.67, say, you owe me $1,466.67 on the settlement statement, which, by the way, whenever we look at this, this impacts the amount of money. I had to send in $468,000 here, right? If I did not receive this credit and this credit, these two together come out to $10,500 plus $1,200, $11,700. I would have had to brought $11,700 more to closing. I would have had to pay more for this. Now, it kind of works out in the end because it was my money, right? And I'm going to use the property tax money, but still, I don't want to be overpaying on my down payments. That's why it's super critical to have it all squared away. So that is what real estate prorations are. The other thing that I want you to check out here on the credits, guys, is the security deposit. Some of the tenants had security deposits in place. You're not prorating that. The security deposits that a tenant has on file when you buy an investment property, that is your money. Technically not even your money, it's the tenant's money until they lose the security deposit. So that money is supposed to be transferred over dollar for dollar, and you want to make sure that it is transferred, because let's say it doesn't get transferred 8 months down the road, the tenant wants to move out, and they say, hey, I want my security deposit back. You go, yeah, the place looks good. You need your security deposit back. You can't say go get it from the old person. They've been paying you rental rates. You are the person who owes them the security deposit. So when you're buying a piece of property, you want to make sure you prorate the rent on the month. You want to make sure you prorate the taxes. You want to make sure you get all of the security deposits. If all that makes sense, if you enjoyed the video, if you learned something, do me a favor, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel. We're putting out more helpful real estate investing content every single week. See you guys. Be great.